The scene is in the Hub Coffee Roasters, a nice little coffee shop known for being a little bit avant-garde, a little bit of a place where the local artists and those who feign to be artists find themselves in Reno, Nevada. Tonight is the second day of night, and currently in the coffee shop, the mood is pensive. Mortals are talking amongst themselves. No one's quite panicked. There's a feeling of unease, odd chatter going between people about what could possibly be causing it. And there's rumors. Could it be a terrorist plot? Is it some sort of scientific test? Government lies? Some sort of military weapon? Others talk about religious matters. Which brings us to a scene. Mr. Philip Kent, Toreador businessman wannabe, sitting at the coffee shop bar. There's a space of several rows between him and the nearest person, and he currently has his nose buried into his Kindle, looking at various pages and manuscripts of technical specs, waiting for someone to arrive. He's not quite sure what this person's like. He's only gotten a brief description from his sire, and he knows that he has to play the job of the middleman, something he doesn't quite think is something matching his station. In fact, he resents it just a little. But he owes the mother quite a few things in his life, and if sending a few messages along to her Bible-toting friends is something he has to do, it's nothing important to him.
As Philip Kent is reading his Kindle, a shadow passes behind him. For a brief second, a reflection appears in the screen ever so slightly. Unlike the other reflections, unlike his own, this one is blurred, as if seen through clouded glass. A skeletal thing, sinister, as somebody pulls up a seat next to him and very calmly asks, "Do you still believe in God, Mr. Kent?"
Mr. Kent looks up, rubs the bridge of his eyes, clearly exhausted. It appears that Mr. Kent hasn't slept in several days. He's a bit of a workaholic, that one. He slowly rubs his tired eye and turns his head to the very off-putting gentleman to his left. You must be Ricardo, am I correct?
As he doesn't smile, he doesn't turn to you. He just sort of looks out the window at the black sky.
All right, Mr.
Mother
Ricardo.
told me about you, Mr. Kent. I'm surprised that she did not come herself.
Ah, yes, well, my mother is a very busy person. She's currently in a bit of a state. She has her superstitions, and she believes that these days of night are something she must genuflect on. I don't profess to have the same faith that she does, but if it's important to her, it holds some weight to me. But she did tell me that she was wanting to speak with you. It's a matter of, he kind of gestures to the darkness outside, what imports these days of night might actually mean.
You do understand that I have the utmost respect for the mother. It is because of her support that our colleagues in Rome were able to smoothly re-enter with the organization at whole. And for that, we are eternally grateful. But her absence would go a great deal to soothing the fears and the anticipation of both our Kindred and Kine flock. And I must express that I am a little disappointed that she has not arrived yet. Although, of course, her reflection may go miles towards discovering exactly what these portents really herald. But the fact that I'm speaking to you instead of her is not my ideal predicament, shall we say. No offense to you, of course, Mr. Kent. I've heard so much about you these nights. So much. You must tell me sometime about how your little exploits in New Orleans went. I heard they were quite interesting, to say the least.
What can I say, Mr. Ricardo? I'll have to regale you one of these fine nights, but New Orleans was a loud place, and I thought it was detrimental to my health to stay there. But as for my mother, you know, there are some things in this world I can't really explain. One of them being the fact that when she really puts her mind to it and she seems to reflect on certain things, she's able to pluck little pieces of knowledge seemingly out of the ether. I don't believe such things possible, but the facts are what they are. I know you would much rather speak with her personally, but the mother, being the sort of person she is, tends to place the needs of her flock before her own. And I believe, if I may be so frank with you, that these needs are sometimes banal and beneath the status of people of your and my nature.
You're comparing us to the same playing field, I see. That's quite brave of you, Mr. Kent. Tell me, how are we on the same playing field, if you were to indulge my curiosity? I think you and I can both agree that we need some levity in these dark times.
Mr. Kent, clearly looking quite haggard, kind of smiles wryly. Well, Mr. Ricardo, or is Father Padre any official title? I don't want to be rude.
He doesn't actually say anything. He just stares at Mr. Kent.
Mr. Kent kind of, you can clear he's slightly unnerved. Well, Mr. Ricardo, people such as yourself and myself, we have a certain condition that gives us nothing but time ahead of us. Uh, God permitting that we don't come to an unseemly end. And when you have nothing but time ahead of you, it allows you certain, different worldviews. You can think in much larger terms than, some of the flock that I'm sure yourself and my mother tend to. I'm not really a people person, Mr. Ricardo. I'm more of an idea man. Uh, I don't trust people. I believe that people can be petty, selfish, cruel, disgusting. But ideas, that, Mr. Ricardo, is where angels walk, as Mary Celeste says to me sometimes. I think that your faith, you believe it to be a literal fact, as does she. I don't seem to profess that, but I do find them to be ideas. Ideas excite me, Mr. Ricardo. Now, I also believe that there's a bit of a marketplace for ideas. I'm a bit of a businessman, or at least fancy myself to be one. And I believe that ideas need to compete. Some ideas are correct, some ideas are wrong. About these days of night, I'll be honest, I've studied it for the prince as best I could. Hell, I've done just about everything, including grabbing an old-fashioned telescope and trying to peer into the sky to find no explanations. So, I find myself coming to you in the name of my mother, and perhaps a more metaphysical bent might reveal something. At this point, I'm willing to throw anything at the wall and see what sticks.
As he almost says in a hushed whisper, as he looks at you like he's thinking aloud before saying, "You said you've met the prince. What do you make of him? I know you're new to the city, and he takes a little getting used to, as we say."
Well, Mr. Ricardo, since we're not exactly friends quite yet, I think it's safe for me to tell you that the man demands respect.
Well, I find it sad that you do not consider us friends yet. After all, you're always welcome within the eparchy. If you ever need anything, just come by any time. As I said before, you and the Reverend Mother are always welcome. But you are not wrong about the prince. He takes some getting used to. And as for that, as he just looks outside again at the black sky, white clouds sort of drift by overhead, without a care in the world, as if the sun were shining, which it should be, but is not. Instead, these two vampires in the middle of the day, sit at this bar, and Father Ricardo Alvarez turns to Philip Kent and says, That is not the work of God. And then he frowns. Not at all. Alert me as soon as she arrives, and with that he'll sort of reach into his pocket and pull out a phone number on a card, and we'll hand it to you. And one piece of advice, since I do consider us friends, don't ever let your guard down in Reno. You never know what lurks beneath the surface, if that is any indication. And with that, Father Alvarez will get up again, and as silently as he arrived, he will depart, heading past Philip and right out the door.
As the father leaves, Mr. Kent snaps his fingers, and seemingly from nowhere, a very large Russian gentleman stands up from one of the booths within eyesight of them both. He stands over Mr. Kent. "Da, boss, I'm glad that you did not need my services." Kent nods. He goes, No. Clearly he wasn't a danger, but he's right. You should never trust anyone. That's why I have you, my big friend." Well, Nikolai, if you don't mind leading me out, I believe I am due over at the Scientific Center. I have yet more tests to run, and maybe one of these nights I'll get some sleep. And with that, the pair walk out into the day, a dry, warm wind washing over them as he steps into his sedan. The large Russian takes the driver's wheel, and they speed off towards the southwest.